Hi guys, it's Hazel Jarvis, it's Art Online, and today we are going to be painting a beautiful water scene. This is our inspiration for today. It's a scene at Port Reyes in Northern California, and this is the scene that we'll be painting. And I'm using my favorite Fabriano student grade cold press paper. And I start with a lightning quick thumbnail study, 5 seconds or less, and a very quick colour study. I'm also going to be using this little jar of Dr. Martens bleed proof white for my gouache, because often this part of the world is very foggy. I start with a very pale pencil sketch, and this is a bit darker than I would actually do, but I want you to be able to see it. And now I'm actually going to erase most of it because I don't want it too dark. So I like to put a little drop of water on my paints just to pre-moisten them so that they're easy to pick up when you're good to go. I'm going to run a little bit of clean water over the sky just so that I don't get any streaky lines. And then I will pick up some of this lovely indigo-y blue, this number 67, and just put in a little bit of sky. And I'll add a tiny bit of my blue, 64. And just run that over. Here is my sky. If you want to give the impression of fog, you can take a clean brush, note I say clean, you can dip it straight into the Dr. Martens, load up with the white, and then just rub the white into the wet sky. I'm going to paint in the cliffs next using a mixture of 42, which is the yellow ochre, and a little bit of 46, the burnt sienna, and a little bit of 47, the Van Dyke brown. So this is one of my new favorite discoveries, this wedge-shaped brush, because it enables you to do a nice wash and it also gives you a sharp point. But don't worry if you don't have one, just use a good round brush. So as you paint, try to imagine that you're running your hand over the cliffs and pull it down toward the water in a very conscious manner. You can go back and you can add darks, but keep it fairly light to start with and go down following the path of the cliffs. See, looking at our picture, that we have some very distinct shadow areas, but basically we have this diagonal movement down toward the water. So I now have all the pale areas of the cliff painted in. I want to be sure that the sky is completely dry before I go on to the next part, which is the sea. I can see it's still shining. If I tilt the paper, you'll see the light reflecting off it. So I have to wait a moment before I can start with the sea. I check that my sky is dry. I mix up 67, the indigo, and 64, the French ultramarine or cobalt blue. And I start to run my paint across for the sea. And I leave a little bit of white where it meets the cliff edge to suggest the surf. If you look at our reference photo, you'll see we have sort of bands of light and shadow in the sea, and that reflects obviously the sky, and this makes it very helpful to pick up some more color, test it on your napkin to make sure it's not too dark, and then just start running your brush gently over the paper and leaving a little bit of the white to suggest the movement of water. And remember, as you get close to the cliffs, leave plenty of white for the surf. Leave more white for the surf than less, and you'll see how beautifully this is coming. So each time keep the water very pale and test on the paper towel before you add a layer. And this is where the tip of the brush with this particular brush is really lovely, because it enables you to sort of stand almost like a ballerina on point and get a very sharp fine line. Take the tip of your brush and use a number 2, a fine round if you need to, and just dance in a little bit of the pattern of the surf, just tipping it in a little darker colour into the light and keeping it very wet. So our sea is now done and we have a lovely watery effect, and you'll see how nicely the water just sort of seems to blend and meld together with the sky. I'm now going to do the mossy green of the headland, and that is number 54 mixed with your yellow ochre 44. Because we've got so many nice soft edges over here, I think for contrast it's nice to have a really sharp edge on the grasslands. So don't worry about following the photo too exactly. You just want to get the general impression, as I say, of the cliffs going down to the sea. But this is not a photograph, this is just a representation. So if you wish, you can go a little bit more abstract or be a little bit more stylized. So the grass is very wet, so we can't put in the dark areas on the cliffs, but we can go back to our water and we can add some more detail in the surf, which is really fun. Sure, you've got a brush with a good point. I'm going to use my lovely Raphael number 2 and go a little bit darker with your paint. Test it, knock it off on the paper towel so that you don't have too much, and start to play about with some of the pattern and some of the ripples like I've done here in your water. Bear in mind that the waves are going toward the cliffs and toward the coast, so do them at an angle following the land. Don't do all this pattern just straight on horizontally in bars. Further away, these patterns should be small. Close up, they should be larger. And now for some darker areas on the cliffs, and that's going to be the yellow ochre mixed with some of the burnt sienna, number 46. As you put in the darker areas, just follow that pull down toward the sea. And I'm going to add just a few more of these tiny little rocks in the water too. Using the tip of my brush and just a nice sharp edge so they stand out. So not too many. Now this contrast may be a little bit strong, so I may just tone it down, go a tiny bit lighter. So just take your time filling in the cliffs, and remember to think of them as very three-dimensional, so play up the light, the medium and the dark. At the very end, I'm putting in some very thin cracks or crevices with very dark paint in, just to get real depth and surface texture in the rocks and the cliffs. So here is the finished painting, and in truth it could be North Cornwall, it could be Maine, it happens to be Point Reyes, California, but it could be almost anywhere. And what you want to take away from this class is hard and soft edges, light, medium and dark, and I hope you'll really have fun. So thank you so much for joining me. Bye-bye. And I love painting water, so here are a few more water scenes. Stay cool, everyone.